Hi, I'm Ruthie Bowles, owner of Defy the Status Quo, and you're listening to an episode of the Defiant Business Podcast, your daily 10-minute shot of business knowledge. So let's get into it. Lately, I've been talking about the different types of content that's out there. I focused on the show on two different types that aren't quite as well known, white papers and case studies. But I also wanted to talk about, and today's topic is content variety and the importance of content and variety. And so, what I mean by content variety is the different types of content that you create and employ in your content marketing strategy. And the reason why this is important and this is something you should focus on is because research shows us that different types of content have different levels of effectiveness based on the where the prospect or where your audience or reader or lead is at in the sales funnel. So, just real quick, what's the sales funnel or sales cycle? The first level of the sales funnel at the top is the widest. So think of it as like an inverted pyramid. The top of the sales funnel is typically the awareness stage of the buyer's journey. The lead or customer or client is aware that they have a problem, or they come across your top of the funnel content and become aware of the fact that they have a problem. The second stage, right? So remember, we're looking at inverted pyramid. So the second stage is like right here, right? So it's not as wide as the top. It is in the inverted pyramid towards the middle. So not as wide as it is at the top, not as narrow as it is at the bottom. And that's considered the consideration stage. So now the lead is considering, the person who's engaging with your content is considering their options in terms of solving their problem. So let's take it back to the top. We'll say, oh, you become aware that you have a physical issue. Your consideration is maybe which treatment you should seek out, or which doctor you should seek out based on your research. And then we move to the bottom of the funnel, the very bottom of the funnel, and that is the decision stage. And that's when people typically make a purchase decision. They go with a service provider or they purchase a product. Now, the sales funnel is, people have been talking about it now and they're starting to turn it into the sales cycle. So the last portion of the sales cycle, which is kind of added on, is the delight phase. And that's going to have to be, I'm going to have to do a podcast episode on the sales funnel and sales cycle in order to really go over those in depth. So I'm not going to do that now. So what types of content are most effective? So according to Content Marketing Institute's research on B2B content marketing, at the top of the funnel, blog posts are the most effective type of content at 73%. 73% of B2B marketers say that blog posts are the most effective for moving people from the top of the funnel, so at the top of the funnel, to the middle of the funnel. So effective is, by their standard, effective is moving someone from one stage of the funnel to the next. So the next most effective one was podcasts, which is great. That's good news for me. 57%, right? 57% of marketers say that this type of content does move people from one phase of the buyer's journey to the next. And then ebooks at 56%, same thing. So this is interesting because you can use a blog post to show someone your ebook and get them to download, right, based off the ebook if they're interested in what the blog post and the ebook have to say. So that's really good news, right? So that's top of the funnel. That's where you're going to get, most of your leads come in at the top of the funnel. So middle of the funnel. So remember, this is the consideration stage. So they're trying to evaluate their options. White papers are the most effective form of content at 53% of marketers giving them, the stamp of approval. The next most effective are webinars. And I think that this makes sense. So amongst some of my peers, and then again, depending on the industry that you're in, but I've had bad experiences with webinars. And so a webinar for me as a top of the funnel tool, just when people are just starting to get to know me, maybe, is not my ideal. Now, if I've been engaged with someone, like, so let's say I follow Neil Patel, or, I follow Julia McCoy. If they sent me an email about a webinar that they were giving, I would be more likely to sign up for it because I already trust them. So it makes sense to me that webinars are very effective at the middle of the funnel because they represent a more serious constraint on my time, because most webinars are 60 minutes. If I trust you, then I'm more likely to give you my 60 minutes. So I'll have to do a whole podcast episode on webinars as well. So stay tuned for that. Comparatively, interesting note. So blog posts at the top of the funnel, 73% of marketers said they were, very effective for moving people from one stage to the next. Only 21% of marketers said the same thing at the middle of the funnel. So just to kind of give you a comparison point there. At the bottom of the funnel, case studies, which we just recently went over on the podcast, 40% of marketers say that case studies are an effective form of content for moving from one phase to the next. So this is the highest one. And then after that, the numbers become pretty disparate. The next highest vote of confidence, if you will, are in-person events at 32%. But after that, it hits the 20s and the teens and the single digits. And I think this is probably a reflection of the fact that we, large in part, are not in control of our content marketing or our customers' journey. Like I said in a previous episode, we're just not in control of it. So we aren't always sure at which point customers convert, right? Or they buy or they move to the next phase. So keep that in mind too as we talk about these numbers. And then comparatively again, so blog posts from the top of the funnel, 73%, marketers say 6% of marketers say that they're effective at the decision or the bottom of the funnel. And then for white papers, they go from 53% vote of confidence to 14%. So it's actually a really big drop. And again, it just really depends on your customer. And that's what I'm going to close with today. The most important thing to know when you think about content variety, because you should have it, is covering your customer or client's preferences. Okay. So for people like busy entrepreneurs, if you're a successful entrepreneur, you likely don't have a lot of time. So trying to get me to sign up for your webinar that's 60 minutes long and I don't know you, that's not going to work as well for me. But if you're saying, hey, here's an ebook, maybe even on the same topic, I'm more likely to download that ebook. I'm more likely to interact with your content because I can skim an ebook. I can go through it at my leisure. I don't have to sit down for an hour to listen to you talk. So it's the same reason why on the website, we put the transcript and the video in the show notes for each podcast episode. And we're backdating some of the other ones right now, is because I may not always have time to listen to a podcast episode or watch a video, but doesn't mean I'm not interested in what you have to say or the content. So when you give me multiple options in terms of how I can consume your content, it makes it more likely that I will. And the other thing to consider as well is that some people just don't like watching videos. Now, video is the highest increasing content form that's being created right now, and for good reason. And people do enjoy videos, but we don't always have time for them. And so in my case, I can read much faster than you can talk. So I would much rather read something most of the time instead of you drawing it out through a video. But again, it always depends. It depends on the topic. It depends on your client or your customer. Your customer base may prefer video, which means that while blog posts are great, you should be putting out video as well, because it makes it more likely that they'll interact with your content and really sit down and absorb what it is that you have to say. The goal of content marketing, at least the way I do content marketing, is to build industry credibility and customer or client trust. In order for that to happen, people have to actually take in your content. So if you're not paying attention to how they like to consume content, you are missing out on the credibility building and the trust building. Okay, so that's been an episode of the Defiant Business Podcast. We talked about the importance of content variety, and that noise means that this episode is over. I look forward to seeing you next time.